Before you start, I know everyone and their dog has put out their opinion about Daniel Ricciardo and his early struggle for form at the start of this wonderful 2024 season. And I agree, it's tiresome. It's exhausting. Do we really need one more YouTube video talking about it? Probably not, but I want to, so I'm gonna. Now listen, there's plenty of people out there who are reveling in Daniel Ricciardo's start to the season, and of course what they consider to be his inevitable impending doom. And if that's how you get your kicks, then fine. You do you. But all these comparisons to Nick de Vries' truncated campaign last year are missing a few key factors on whether or not it's worthwhile RB keeping Daniel Ricciardo on. So let's dig into that for a bit, shall we? For starters, I'm going to address the rumour that Liam Lawson might be in the car come Miami. Now, for some reason that cropped up again last week. Can't imagine why. So this rumour was started by the New Zealand Herald. Which is, of course, known for its high-profile contacts within the paddock, and of course every sports reporter's extensive knowledge of Formula One and how it functions. Now obviously by my tone of voice you can tell I'm being ironic. This country only cares about Formula One when we have either somebody who is looking like they could be a good prospect for a seat, and then we just basically like gas them up and gas them up and gas them up because they're a very convenient way to fill a spare 2 minutes that you've got in the Sports News on 6 PM broadcast, or we care if somebody is actually in a permanent seat and doing well, or a temporary seat, as was the case last year. So considering the last Kiwi with a full-time drive was Brendan Hartley, you can kind of see where I'm going here. Listen, I'm sure there's a lot of sports journalists in this country who've had to give themselves crash courses on F1 since Zandvoort last year. And they're really not quite grasping the complexities of everything. And I suspect most of their sources are something like, I'm Liam Lawson's brother's neighbour's best friend. Maybe not that bad, okay, I'm not slandering anyone. NZ Herald, please don't come after me. Kiwi media in general is not a reliable source of F1 gossip. I don't think we've sent a journalist from any outlet to a Grand Prix in literal decades. Let's just leave it at that. So let's move on from that and talk about why RB might not be willing to chuck Daniel's contract in the bin just yet. From the get-go, even in the latter parts of last year when AlphaTauri was still yet to announce their new name and title sponsors, it was pretty clear that Daniel was their major draw card for pulling in the cash. Fast forward it to now, and I imagine those big sponsors won't be all too happy if the powers that be within the Red Bull camp decide they want to part ways with him, especially if he hasn't yet completed his side of the deal in regards to shilling their products. So that's one big tick in the keep Daniel box. Nick de Vries wasn't a driver with a massive international profile who brought in the sponsors. Daniel Ricciardo is. The AlphaTauri/RB YouTube channel has seen a pretty decent uptick in views since Daniel joined the team last year, and more views means more eyes on those sponsorship logos. Although I would also like to add that the All Access videos from the Yuki and Liam teammate era was also right up there as well, so props to them. They did well. I think you can tell that they used to be flatmates. So Daniel, he's just a PR merchant then, right? There to smile for the cameras and bring in the cash. Well, I'm not so sure about that. One constant since Daniel's return to the grid last year is the consistent improvement we've seen in the car. Remember 2022 when George Russell finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton? I know there's haters out there who'll insist that Mercedes' admission that Lewis was the guinea pig being used to figure out the car's issues was them making excuses, but unlike a lot of what comes out of that garage, I tend to take that claim at face value. But why is this relevant? Well, Yuki's been very upfront about not having a lot of confidence with the car feedback and assisting with the development path. Daniel, on the other hand, is well known for having the technical vocabulary and understanding to convey his experience in the car in a way that moves the development process forward. Basically, Yuki has benefited from Daniel's skill with car development. Not only because he's been driving the spoils, but he's also learnt a massive amount himself about how to communicate this information. A lot of criticism has been aimed at Red Bull for choosing to put an experienced driver in their B team, because theoretically they're taking a seat away from a rookie. Hi Gordo, I swear he's got fatter. And I don't tend to agree with this assertion at all, actually. While yes, I completely understand the criticism and where it's coming from, I think if Red Bull is really wanting their new talent to progress quickly, then the most effective way to do this is to pair them with a driver with a wealth of knowledge to impart on them. Not only does this set a more credible baseline for performance, because the senior driver is a known entity rather than somebody who they've only ever experienced as their own internal junior driver, but it's also just in general the best way to set somebody up for success in the future. The end goal should always be that the younger driver surpasses their teammate, both on track and behind the scenes. Nobody wants to invest millions of dollars into somebody only for them to fail. And this is no shade on Pierre Gasly, but I don't think he and Yuki were benefiting each other when it came to their own personal development. Yes, they got on well and they made some cute videos, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a pairing that works well together to improve both the car or push one another to perform at a higher level. And I think it's clear that Yuki Tsunoda is now performing at a very high level. Sure, his points in Australia were a bit lucky thanks to those retirements, and had Sauber had a one-off banger pit stop in Japan, then that point there probably would have been in jeopardy too, but this is still by far and away a much more complete Yuki than we've ever seen. For the first time ever, I genuinely think that if they stuck him in that Red Bull, Yuki would bring home more consistent results than Checo. And herein lies the RB problem. With Checo doing what he's being paid to do, that 2025 seat that we all thought was up for grabs suddenly might not be. And Lawson, well, he's not going to sit in that reserve driver role for another year. He's made that pretty clear. So the options are either to let him go and try for another contract somewhere else, or stick him in the car. And if it's the latter, that's either going to be at the expense of the driver who's actually performing. Yeah, you are a cat. Where was I? Yes, so if they do stick him in the car, that's either going to be at the expense of a driver who is actually performing, or somebody who is pushing the car in the development direction that it needs and has many, many years of varied experience for him to learn from. Unfortunately for Red Bull, their problem from last year hasn't gone away. They still have 5 drivers to plug into 4 seats, and all of them offer different benefits to the organisation as a whole, both in the short term and the long. This is why I haven't bought into the hype of a return to the Sainz Verstappen pairing. I just don't see Red Bull going for an outside hire when that's just going to potentially create even more headaches. Although, on a personal note, I would love to see them get that particular gang back together for a multitude of reasons, not all of them particularly savoury. The TLDR of all of this is that drivers aren't always about only the results. Yes, they're a massive factor, obviously, don't come at me, but there's more nuance around who brings what value to a team. When you're playing the long game, like as much as it might not always look like it, Red Bull does with its B team, sometimes you need to look many years in the future and have contingencies in place for a lot of possible outcomes. In leadership, we call this succession planning, something Toto Wolff hasn't quite got the hang of. And look, Max Verstappen is the last guy on the grid that I think of as disingenuous. I believe him when he says there's a good chance he won't be racing come 2029. And that might feel like a long way off, but at the end of this year, that's only 4 more seasons of Max. If they want to continue to fight for championships come the end of the decade, Red Bull needs to make sure they have a new home-built prodigy in the car, already with a year or 2 of experience under their belt in the top team, and ready to inherit Max's mantle. Being a Formula 1 driver isn't just about being fast, it's about the whole picture and working as a part of the team rather than just plugging into the cockpit on a Grand Prix weekend and driving good. Incidentally, I think this is Ferrari's big blind spot with their new driver lineup for 2025. Look, Lewis and Charles are without a doubt 2 of the most talented drivers in the modern era. I personally do buy into the Lewis the GOAT thing. And as somebody who is basically the same age as him, I take issue with people saying he can't do it anymore, especially when you look at Fernando. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that these are 2 extremely talented drivers who are going to get results. However, I very much get the impression that the driver that they've dropped is the one who has the most potential to push them in the technical direction they need to beat Red Bull. I'm not saying Ferrari made a mistake. To be clear, I think the choice to snag Lewis was an extremely smart one, particularly from a financial aspect. I mean, that company value went, I bet John Elkann's getting a really big bonus. And just like Daniel Ricciardo, people who matter always have positive things to say about how Carlos Sainz operates within the team and how he provides feedback on the cars. But you know, that's ruminations for another time.